Hello everyone, I'm Mars. I'm glad to continue our discussion today. There are several ways to calculate GDP, and today I'll introduce the so-called value-added approach to calculating GDP. As always, GDP is not just a game of cash flow. Instead, it's about the value truly added at each stage, then summing all added value. This way, we arrive at the same GDP. Solving problems is still the best way to learn. Let numbers tell the story of economics. That's the real economic thinking. So, we'll continue teaching through problem solving. Let's look at the second question. A farmer sells cotton for 200 yuan to a textile factory. The textile factory turns the cotton into fabric and sells it to a garment factory. The garment factory uses the fabric to make clothes, selling them to retailers for 900 yuan. So, in this process, we have three stages. First, the farmer sells cotton to the textile factory for 200 yuan. Then, the textile factory, after turning cotton into fabric, sells it to the garment factory for 550 yuan. And finally, the garment factory makes clothes from the fabric and sells them for 900 yuan. The question, how much value did the clothing manufacturer, the garment factory, add? Value added is how much value was increased. So how much value was added? It's simple. We have a formula, output minus input. What's our output? Clothes sold for 900 yuan. How much did raw materials, the fabric, cost us? 550 yuan. Subtracting that, we get 350 yuan. This way we can clearly see that the actual value added in the process is 350 yuan. There's another way to calculate it. What is the real GDP? We'll look at a more complex example in the next section, but for now, let's use a clever shortcut. So what is GDP? GDP is simply the value of all final products in the entire system. It's very straightforward. There are just three players. One is the farmer, one is the textile mill, and the other is the garment factory that makes the clothes. So what is the final product? It's the clothes. And how much are these clothes sold for? 900 yuan. So our total GDP is 900 yuan. Why? Because we should remember this. What's the simplest concept? Only the final products and services count. All the intermediate ones don't. So today, aren't we talking about value added? Value added is actually pretty simple. We can see how much value the farmer adds. 250. 250 minus 0 is 250. Alright, so for the textile mill, how much value does it add? It's 550 minus 250, right. That's 300. So how much value does the garment factory add? We just calculated it. 350. 900 minus 550 is 350. Now, if we add these three value-added amounts, 250 plus 300 plus 350, it adds up to 900. Okay, so similarly, we can see that the GDP in the end is just 900. But we have a shortcut. The simplest way is to look at the final product, which is sold for 900, and that's it. This question is easily solved. Now, let's look at the second question, which is a bit more complicated. First, let's see that in our economy, we have several players. First, we have a lumber mill. The lumber mill cuts down the wood and then sells it for 300. Then, after that, the wood is processed into smaller pieces of lumber by chunbai, which can then be sold to the actual furniture factory for 700. After the furniture factory gets it, they sell it off. They produce goods worth 1200, but let's not talk about where exactly that 1200 goes. Out of that, 300 is exported, 700 is sold directly to domestic retailers, and the remaining 200 isn't sold, but is instead put into their own warehouse. So, if we calculate GDP using this value-added method, we can see that there are still three stages here, three stages that we've already identified. Let's take the example of logging and a furniture factory. We can see that the logger sells the timber for 300, so that's 300 minus 0, which is its value added. The second stage is the lumber mill. After the lumber mill receives the wood, it cuts, planes, and processes it, and eventually it becomes something else. Generally, the most usable type of lumber is worth 700, so that's 700 minus 300. Then finally, the furniture factory, meaning after the furniture factory processes it, the output is worth 1,200. Its input is 700, so if we add up all three of these together, we can quickly see what the final GDP is, right? If we add these three together, we can quickly calculate 300 plus 400 plus 500, and the total is exactly how much? 1200. The answer is D. Of course, there's also a very simple point that we just mentioned. What is GDP? It's the final product, right? That is, the last one. I don't care about the rest. The main thing is that it's the final intermediate product produced domestically. This is its GDP. It's a geographic concept, final product, and it's domestic, meaning, for example, produced within the United States. In this case, it's 1200 because the final product is 1200. They produce this many finished goods, so the answer is 1200. Using this shortcut, we can get the answer faster. Besides that, there's another way, using this method to calculate GDP. This way, domestically, what is domestic consumption? 700. So C is 700. What about investment? That is, how much was ultimately put into inventory, because it wasn't sold and is just counted as fixed asset investment. Well, that's 200. After calculating investment, what is G? Government. Well, in this small exercise, we don't actually have any government spending. Now, let's look at net exports. It's clear. They already said that $300 worth was exported. So, as we can see, in the end it's 700 plus 200 plus 0 plus 300, and we also get a GDP of 1200. So you can see that GDP can actually be calculated in many different ways. Today, we're mainly looking at how to calculate it using the value-added method, but of course, we could also use the most traditional method, which is consumption plus investment. Plus government spending and net exports. That's another way to calculate it. See you next time. Bye.